All right. Now that we're inside this lovely Excelsior sauna, I'm happy to be sitting on the bench with my guest, Jen Veralle. It's good to have you.
Awesome to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Now, I know about my own relationship with alcohol and pain, and we can get into that as we go. But let me ask you, Jen, what brings you into pain?
Oh, such a good question. When we first talked about this, I was thinking about pain in terms of a physical pain. And as I've been thinking about it more, it is like a suffering. Like my pain was more like suffering of being in social spaces that didn't accept the fact that I was trying not to drink. And I really align those pain points as more like mental challenges. And we can talk about how sauna was a solution to that. But for our conversation today, for sure, want to talk about all the ways that pain shows up.
I love that because, yeah, I mean, pain is such a funny thing. You know, your first instinct of when you hear pain, you're thinking injury, right?
Yeah, right.
But the pain that can come from the brain,
Oh,
just
yeah,
a mental
love that.
standpoint,
Yeah.
can be just as debilitating as physical pain. And for me, you know, whenever I set goals, the first thing to go is alcohol because I need to be concentrating. I need to sleep well. Everything needs to be functioning. And if it's a constant in your life, you're never able to take a break from it,
100%.
and,
Yeah.
and the pipes aren't functioning clean,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You got dirty pipes.
Yep. I would say in active addiction, it was, waiting till whatever time during the day when I could actually have alcohol. Because I was I would say, high functioning alcoholic. And my pain was kind of suffering through the day, knowing that I wasn't living in my purpose. Alcohol kept me out of my purpose. And I always say to anyone, any amount can do that. You don't have to define yourself as an alcoholic. You can just say, alcohol doesn't serve me. So I was in this insanity cycle of pain. And what do we do when we have pain? We're uncomfortable and we immediately look to solve it. And for me, it was alcohol. It was like that I knew would do the trick. Obviously not long term, but right in terms of an immediate fix, did it for me. I was like, okay, now I can relax. I can reduce my anxiety about being in the workplace or like sort of covering up my alcohol use.
Yeah. Wow. I know what that struggle is like. I never really saw myself as someone with a drinking problem. I had a couple incidents where I got a DUI. You know, that was
There's
a
that.
bummer.
Yep,
There's that.
bummer.
That's adolescence.
Yeah.
Not knowing how to operate properly in life. But you know, beyond that, I was fortunate that I was able to turn off the alcohol. For me, that the problem, was actually binge eating in a sense.
Yeah, right.
That's where but so I can relate from a
For
that
sure.
binge eating standpoint when you're waiting through the day and you're just like, I'm doing well, I'm doing well, I'm doing well, but there's just something in the back of your mind that's like, yeah, I know you're doing well,
You're knowing,
but just wait.
and you're going to go there.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
in your book, I totally resonated with that because it was like, okay, getting through the day, just kind of getting through life is how I operated. And then it was like, work out hard. I'd always say, toxins in, toxins out. And I would get a reset. But in the back of my mind, in the morning, I might say, I'm so hungover, I'm not drinking again. I'm not going to do it tonight. By 5, 6 o'clock, I could just feel that anxiety coming up, that suffering of like, how am I going to escape this? How am I going to spend just time with myself and my own body and not be so uncomfortable?
Right. Yeah. It's those are challenging times.
For sure.
And I know when I was trying to break through of my depression and when I was going and hanging out with my friends again, that was tough. Everybody's drinking. And fortunately I had cannabis as a good thing in my life. So I would have friends that I could hang out with, and we would enjoy smoking weed together. But they were far and few.
Yeah.
And there was a stigma to that at the time.
Oh, for sure.
We're still dealing with it now, even with the legalization of
Right.
it. But yeah, I mean, gosh, do I just have one beer? Do I have one drink? And I would start to get to this mental point where when I would even have one, it was almost like a day ruined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where if I'm trying to achieve goals physically or professionally or just socially,
Totally.
I want to have
that.
I like sober days, you know, that's where I ended up finding that balance is seeking out sober days.
Yeah. No, and I think it's really interesting because I view it when you say like an off switch, right? Like I know that I never had that. I consider myself in recovery. I use different terms now to describe my relationship with alcohol, which is I need to be sober, like sober necessary is what I say, but I never had an off switch. So there's defining that relationship with alcohol, but I almost in 10 years of sobriety now am like, I actually feel kind of blessed that it's not an option for me.
That's
and
so
it takes it off the table completely. And I look at others who want to be alcohol free, but they can take or leave it. And so they're in this middle ground of like, how much is too much? And like, where do I assess my relationship? And I guess it's one of the beautiful things of long-term sobriety is you just don't even have to think about that.
That's pretty great. Yeah, when I started, this time last year, I was really into the process of writing my book, and I was looking at my month, and at the beginning of all this, I was looking at it like, man, I don't even know if there's a day in there where I don't want to have a beer or do something like that. So I had to get over that mental thought where I need to have a beer. And, fortunately, like being a brewery owner, that can be kind of interesting, right?
Oh, yeah. We got to talk about that more. Yeah.
But we're able to sell THC. And for me, I see THC seltzers as a non-alcoholic option, but I understand how it's not non-alcoholic for everybody, right? And it has different meaning. But for me, being able to be an advocate for not consuming alcohol and also how cannabis can benefit from you, that has really helped me move on from the daily desire to have just one beer.
Yeah.
And
that's huge.
I can just go back behind the bar and pour whatever I want, whenever I want, right? That was tricky for a few years,
for sure.
but I've been able to find that balance, and it's so key.
And like, trust yourself. Like reading your book all about the Krispy Kremes, right? I worked at a bakery for 3 summers, and like, just, the temptations are always there, and it's part of your work environment. So I love that you bring that up, because when I came to Back Channel first and when we met, I was like, this really does feel like a community and a social space, which to me is all about the NA movement, is making it more of a social movement to say we aren't necessarily gathering in order to just drink. You have the space, but you've provided options. And that's all I have ever personally wanted and been advocating for. So
totally.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely. And thank you for seeing like what we're trying to do. We are called Back Channel Brewing, but I view us as an entity, as a gathering space, an event space. People where all walks of life can come together. We had a Sauna and Sobriety event a couple months ago, and it was fun talking to people about, hey, let's break down this invisible wall of, you have to drink if you're coming to a brewery, because you don't.
Right.
We have more NA options than beer, than regular beer options.
I couldn't believe the selection you brought out today. I was like, that's amazing. And also just to have it integrated. So I think one of the issues with recovery, and one of the things I saw missing, was people in AA, for example, would go to fellowship and do things just with their non-drinking friends. And I always thought, well, that's great. That helped me for the first 3 years. That's all I did, because I didn't trust myself in different social spaces. But what happened was, 3 some years into it, I'm like, there's got to be a way to integrate. I have friends that don't drink or drink responsibly, that have a couple NA beverages and maybe shift to alcohol or vice versa. But the behavior and the way they show up is still authentic. Like, you can still be in community with people that drink if you don't.
Definitely. Yeah, and I like how you said responsibly. In your article, the word that really struck me was mindful drinking and mindful consumption. And that's how I view myself, as a mindful drinker, because I like to stay in shape. My whole being is fighting pain. Right. And I've recognized that too much alcohol will lead to pain. So there has to be a balance. I like to celebrate with friends, but I'm not going to get blasted anymore. I can have a few beers and that's good. I liken it to my desire to have sweets and donuts as well.
Totally, right?
Krispy Kreme is coming back to the Twin Cities, and I'm gonna have one of those damn donuts.
Yes.
Am I gonna have a dozen? I don't think so.
It'll be a celebrated moment where you will have come to that with just a different perspective, and your journey looks different.
Yeah. Exactly. But like when it comes to staying in shape, I look at a week and I'm like, I'm gonna work out there. I'm not gonna have a beer or alcohol later on.
Right.
That is not good for protein synthesis. Alcohol is gonna kill that process.
And I love that you know all the science behind everything, because that's actually a new driver that people have come to it. Like even in the sauna where we're at in cold plunge, there's huge, health benefits. And if you are someone who works out and takes care of your body, ultimately you have to say alcohol doesn't align.
Correct.
I mean, I was doing these crazy like step classes and killing myself, half hour workouts daily when I was in active addiction, just to be able to say, I've got my, act together. I'm totally fine. But that hardcore mentality of working out. And then when you look at like how you want to perform, it's like, how did alcohol fit into that? Of course, I was in my 20s and 30s when I was doing that, but that would never fly now.
Right.
It would take me out for days.
Yeah. It's crazy. I used to, we had chatted, we had a similar story where you'd go out, you'd drink when you're young, and you'd stay up super late.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have any food when you get home at night.
Yeah.
You get up in the morning, you feel shame, and you go and pound away for an hour or two, sweating, not necessarily replenishing, and then when you do replenish, it's never enough. So there's this constant state of depletion when you're fighting the alcohol workout routine.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I didn't know about water. Honestly, now people like actually know to drink water. This was, 2 decades ago where I would get up and maybe have some caffeine and then go to a spin class.
Yeah.
And just like, what? How did that even happen?
Crazy.
I don't know. It's
Crazy.
wild. Yeah.
Well, water is life.
Water is life, and we're gonna get in some very cold water soon.
Oh, I can't wait for that. Speaking of which, I'm gonna step down here and stoke our fire a little bit.
Yeah, we could use some heat.